Hi, my name is Anouk and I'm a Customer Success Engineer at Deeploy. In this tutorial, I will show you how you can onboard an external model, and in this case it will be an Azure OpenAI model. To get started, we go to the website and press Login, which brings us to the team overview. I want to create a new deployment, so I go to a workspace and click Create. And today I'm going to onboard an external model. I will link a new repository. So I go to my repository that I prepared, and this is a repository that contains metadata, a model card and a data card for a GPT-4o model. So I copy the URL, I return to Deeploy and paste it. I select the branch and commit I want to use and click Next. This GPT-4 model will be used as an assistant to compliance professionals. So I will call it Regulatory Compliance Assistant. I will give it a risk classification based on the levels of the EU AI Act and click Next. And now I have to set up the connection between Deeploy and the model endpoint of my GPT-4o model that is running on Azure. So I go into my Azure OpenAI portal. On the left, we can browse through the different functionalities and go to deployment. And from deployment, we can see that we have already deployed this GPT-4o model here. I will copy the URL, paste it in Deeploy. I will need to select an authentication method, in this case custom header, which needs to have the header API -key and the password that can be found within Azure OpenAI. I copy it and paste it in Deeploy. And now we can test the connection. The test was successful, so let's move on. We can manage compliance insights, for example, add a new template that we want to be filled in for this deployment and click Deploy. What we can see now is that this deployment is registered in the Deeploy database, the repository is cloned, and from there the metadata, model card and data cards are downloaded to be presented within Deeploy. And lastly, the connection is checked. Alright, this all looks good. So we just deployed our external model. We can test it on the test base using the example input and make a prediction. Alright, now that we have tested this deployment, we want to, of course, integrate it into our processes. And to do that, it is important to know that you should integrate with the Deeploy API endpoint. So make a prediction request to that API endpoint, and Deeploy will make sure to route the traffic to the Azure OpenAI model that is running on Azure. By using this setup, you can make sure to still use Deeploy's functionalities such as monitoring, alerts, and the full audit trail on your externally running OpenAI model. To be able to make prediction requests to this model, we have to set up authentication. So we go to authentication and we will add a token. We also want to use it to submit evaluations, in other words, human feedback. And we save it. We copy the token. In a production setting, you would use this token in your backend of a chatbot, for example. But for this example, I will use Hugging Face. So I will paste the token here. And this UI interacts with the deployment within Deeploy. So what I can do here is I ask a question. It will make a request to Deeploy, which routes it through to the Azure OpenAI model, and I get an output. So I get an overview of all the most important regulations on credit risk models in the EU. And I think it's quite a comprehensive answer, so I give feedback. I say this is a useful answer, so I press thumbs up. And what is interesting now is that we can actually see all the predictions that were once made to produce a full audit trail. And the question that we just asked can be found in the predictions log. And also the evaluation that I provided, the agreed, is saved. Next to the predictions, we can also make use of the monitoring capabilities. So we go to monitoring. And what we can see is we can see how many predictions were made. So monitor that. We can see if there were any errors in the requests, what's the response time. And we can also monitor the human feedback that is given. So the disagreement ratio. And we can also set alerts for each of those metrics to make sure that you're immediately notified once your Azure OpenAI model behaves unexpectedly. We can also make sure to have all of the compliance documentation and checklists for this external deployment. And we can go into manage and then details to find all the details. For example, change the owner of the deployment, change the risk classification or the use case that it adheres to. We can find the model card here that is read from the repository, as well as the data cards. We can update the connection to the externally running model. And we can update the commit here in case we have made changes to the repository. For example, if we have updated our model card, we can change it here and then update the deployment. Also, we can find a full history of all the once active deployment versions here, and optionally restore to an older version as well. And we can find an overview of all the predictions that were made with this model, and also find whether they are evaluated and find the evaluation here as well. Lastly, we can also find all the events that happen to this deployment. As you can see, you can easily onboard external models in Deeploy to make sure that you can also monitor, control, and govern those models. This also allows you to onboard any model to Deeploy, whether that you want to deploy them as managed deployments in the Deeploy infrastructure or connect to externally running models. Everything can be added to one AI registry within Deeploy. I would like to thank you for watching this tutorial and see you next time.